Padmaja Iyengar will start her experiences and her association with poetry.
నమస్కారం అండి భాస్కర్ రెడ్డి గారు. నమస్కారం అండి పెరుగు రామకృష్ణ గారు. మీ అందరికి కూడా నమస్కారం అండి. మైక్ ఆన్ చేయాలి. నమస్కారం అండి భాస్కర్ రెడ్డి గారు. నమస్కారం అండి రామకృష్ణ పెరుగు గారు. మీ అందరికి కూడా నా నమస్కారాలండి. నాకు అంత బాగా తెలుగు రాదండి, కానీ ఏదో కొంచెం ప్రయత్నం చేస్తాను, జస్ట్ ఫర్ ద బిగినింగ్. తర్వాత ఐ విల్ స్విచ్ టు ఇంగ్లీష్ అండి. మీరు చాలా ఆర్డినరీగా మేము చేస్తున్నాము అది ఇది అంటారు, బట్ అకార్డింగ్ టు మీ ఇది చాలా ఎక్స్ట్రాఆర్డినరీ ఈవెంట్ అండి. ప్రతి నెల మీరు చేస్తున్నారు కదా నెల నెల వెన్నెల, ఇది చాలా ఎక్స్ట్రాఆర్డినరీ ఈవెంట్. ఎందుకంటే మీ ఫోకస్ ఏమో లిటరేచర్ మీద ఉంది, పర్సనాలిటీస్ మీద కాదు. లిటరేచర్కి మీరు ఎలా సేవ చేస్తారు, అందరు ఎలా సేవ చేయాలో అనుకుంటున్నారో దాని గురించి ఈ ప్రోగ్రామ్. సో దానివల్ల ఇది చాలా ఎక్స్ట్రాఆర్డినరీ ఈవెంట్, ఇది ఆర్డినరీ ఈవెంట్ కాదండి. సో ఐఎమ్ ష్యూర్ దిస్ ఇస్ విల్ గో అ లాంగ్ వే ఇన్ not only imbibing a culture of sharing one's literary thoughts, but also spreading literature to literature far and wide. Coming to me personally, as to how my literary journey started, it started long back. Long back means when I was around 11-12 years old. I wrote my first poem in Hindi. I started off in Hindi actually, because I grew up in Maharashtra. I studied in a Hindi medium school for some time. So I started writing poetry in Hindi, and thereafter I turned into a playwright in Hindi. I wrote 3 plays in Hindi that were broadcast over All India Radio. And then, I did my graduation and all, and I got a job as a bank officer. And thereafter my writing journey almost stopped, because my job was so challenging and so tight, with transfers to many places. I got married early, had a very abusive marriage, had a child, and thereafter I just couldn't think of, because my life was such a story that I had no time to talk about or write about my literary stories or poems and all that. So there was a gap of about 40 years, and when my son had attained a good position, and I also took a voluntary retirement from the bank in 2005, and thereafter, in the real sense, my literary journey began. Rather late in life, say around the age of 55, 56, I started. I'm 64 now. I started my literary journey. But then the spark was always within me, wanting to be, just ignited and and convert it into a fire. So therefore, I thought my literary journey cannot begin until my son's journey had been put to a certain track and scale. And that has happened, and now I fully and totally devote myself to writing, poetry, and so on and so forth. One of the results is this book called Pen Chants. It's a very unusual name in that P.N. Chants. Or you can read it as Pen Chants. Or you can read it as Péchant, which is a French word for liking. So this can be read in P.N. Chants is, my name starts as Padmaja, Paddy. So P.N. Chants or Pen Chants or Péchant. That's how this book is. Now, I write mostly English poetry. I still write a bit of Hindi poetry, but not much, because I'm more comfortable writing in English now. And I also love to, I always believe that writing is not only my exclusive domain, it has to be shared. And I felt that though I'm not a very great writer or anything, I must get to read everybody's writing. It was a very selfish thing. So with that, I started on my 60th birthday, my son presented me a literary networking forum called ratemyliterature.com. So it's an online thing where writers come and post their work. There is a peer review happening. People write about, how much they like their work. Some people even review it critically, and we share each other's thoughts. So we have about 500 members on this web portal called ratemyliterature.com, where, it's a networking site for writers, poets, everybody. Just like Facebook, if they are online, they can chat with each other. They can send messages to each other, they can ping, they can send a wave. Besides that, they can post their video, they can post their everything. In fact, we did an author's lounge with Mr. Ramesh Anand. And we have a monthly series called the Author's Lounge, where one writer from the website is interviewed in a very interactive session, and we upload it. It's actually an email interaction, but it is made to seem like a real interview, live interaction. But as far as Ramesh is concerned, it was a very unusual event in that, we all met in Guntur. And we were casually, he was telling us about haiku because he's such a good haiku writer, haiku poet. So we said, why don't you just tell us something about haiku? Let us also learn something about haiku. And then Ramesh was very kind enough to share his haiku knowledge with us. And another member of ours, she videographed the whole thing, just like you're doing it now. And, it became an author's lounge interaction. So this is how our website, we are doing it every month. We have one writer in the author's lounge, and there is a free interaction happening. Now, idea behind this was that I am not a literary person, but here was an opportunity for me to read everybody's work, learn from them, and in some way improve my own writing. Personally, I believe no writer influences another writer. Each writer has got his own style, his own way of thinking, his own perspective about writing, and would write accordingly. I have a style of my own, I would write. Reshma has her own style, she'll write accordingly. So, but however, it's always nice to know what others are writing. Where is literature headed? Where is writing headed? Where is poetry headed? Where is other types of writing headed? And in that aspect, Rate My Literature gave me a great opportunity to read about many poets, many writers, many short story writers. We have all sorts of things happening there. But then I was not satisfied with what was happening on Rate My Literature. I felt that all this that is happening, something should happen more, but I didn't know what was going to happen. But as if providentially, I got a call one day from Mr. Harishchandra Prasad, Y. Harishchandra Prasad of Mahalakshmi Group. He said, Padmaja Garu, we are going to have a wing, CSR wing, Corporate Social Responsibility wing, called Cultural Center of Vijayawada. Can you be our honorary literary advisor? I said, sir, but I don't know a word of Telugu. I don't know to read and write Telugu. And in a place like Vijayawada, do you think I can do any justice to this particular initiative? He said, no, you think of something on your own. And then you come to us and we will facilitate the whole thing. And that's when, on 25th January 2015, Cultural Center of Vijayawada came into being. It's a beautiful place. Now it is called the Cultural Center of Vijayawada and Amaravati. CCVA, and that is where they have three wings there called the Sahiti wing, the Akriti wing, and the Samskriti wing. The Sahiti wing is the literary wing, Akriti is the art wing, and Samskriti is the cultural wing. Now all these things are located in Mogalarajapuram in a 6,000 SFT. It's an exclusive place, dedicated space for Cultural Center of Vijayawada. And their idea is to spread literature, art and culture in the entire state of Andhra Pradesh, especially in the city of Vijayawada, which was otherwise only engaged in watching movies and watching TV serials and all that. They felt we have to wean away people from those things and involve them in art, culture and literature. But slowly it is getting wings and it is going to other places also. Now, I was wondering, what can I do for Cultural Center of Vijayawada, being a non-Telugu person, and as their honorary literary advisor, however, suddenly this happened out of the blue. So I said, sir, we can do one thing. Let us have a small anthology of Telugu and English poetry. So our Harishchandra Garu was very sweet. He said, okay, Padmaja Garu, go ahead. Then I said, sir, why only English and Telugu, sir? Let us have South Indian languages. He said, go ahead. Whatever you want to do, you do it. Then I said, sir, why should we have only South Indian languages? Let us get pan-India languages. Fine, do that, madam, no problem. Then I said, why pan-India? Let's have global languages. And that is how this poetic prism was born. We decided that let's bring out an anthology of just not only our own South Indian languages, but languages across India and languages across the world. This whole thing was conceptualized within a matter of 2 months, Poems were invited and published within 2 months, and we also had an event called Poetic Prism, where multilingual poets came and recited their poems, and it was a beautiful this one. I'm glad to say that Ramakrishna Garu, Allu Bhaskar Reddy Garu, everybody have contributed their poems to Poetic Prism 2015. Now the activity has graduated to Poetic Prism 2016. Now, Poetic Prism 2016, as on date, has poems in 490 plus languages in 47 languages. 490 poems in 47 plus languages. Whereas last year it was only 19 languages and 142 poems, but all done in a matter of 2 months. And we were also new, we didn't know how to go about it, but somehow we managed. And he will vouchsafe, the event was also quite a interesting and successful event, where people across India came and read out their poems, and we conducted it also in a very innovative manner. We said nobody is a senior poet, nobody is a junior poet. Poets are poets. That's it. And so what we did, we put the names of all the poets in a fish bowl. So one person picks up the chit, one senior person picked up the chit, read his poem and then picked up the chit. He reads, announces the name of the poet. The next poet comes, reads his poem, picks up a chit, announces the name of the next poet. So they were kept guessing all the time who is next. So, some senior poets came somewhere in the end, some junior poets came right in the beginning. But all in all, everybody found the system very democratic, very enjoyable. And, there was nothing like Telugu poems happening or English poems happening or Tamil poems. It was a mix. So suddenly there will be a Telugu poem, suddenly there was a French poem, then there was a Bengali poem, and then there was a Telugu poem. And, it was a very mix of languages. And I thought this was a great, amalgamation and synchronization of poetry happening in a very different way. Now, Poetic Prism 2016 has got 490 poems as of now in 47 languages. And if all goes well, we might even get 2-3 languages more and some more poems and make it into a neat 500 with 50 poem languages. But it's all, otherwise we are happy with 47 languages and 490 poems. Now, this poetic journey, this is how has been for me. It is not me alone, growing as a poet. My effort has been to take along poets with me. Take along, people along with me, showcase the poetry of various types of people across the world, and, learn something from that myself. Very selfishly, I gave a guideline to all the poets. No matter whichever language you write poetry in, it's welcome, but you have to provide 2 to 3 lines in English on the theme of the poem. That was my selfish motive, to know what the poem is all about. And, from there to get a thread, build, and weave something around it and create a poetic prism. So we said, all of you, irrespective of the language of the poem, kindly provide us 2-3 lines in theme of the poem. That way, because English being a global language, it is understood by everybody. And people from US, UK, far off places like Nigeria, from Ghana, from Canada, from Japan, from Vietnam, Thailand, all across the globe, Italy, all over the world people have contributed poems. So, what I have observed in all this, my experience as a coordinator of poetry, as a, compiler of poetry, I notice that poetic thinking is all alike. Poets are all alike. They are all sensitive souls. They are all thinking souls. They are all feeling souls. And they are all talking souls. They are all expressive souls. Because for them, expression is very important. And a window of expression, a platform of expression, whether it's Poetic Prism or whether it is any other, it's very interesting for them. And what I have noticed is, the thinking of the poets, it's all the same. Irrespective of the language, what they are trying to communicate is all the same. It may be an individual perspective, but ultimately you will find somewhere there is a care, somewhere there is a concern, somewhere there is a love for the fellow human being, somewhere there is a huge concern for peace. As sensitive souls, most of the poets have a concern for peace, concern for, life, concern for nature, concern for children, concern for the fellow humans, and concern for the poverty around us. So, it may be the topics may be different, but the common thread there is care, concern, love, peace, all these things. This is what we noticed. There was never a, any aggression of the kind of, demeaning some language, demeaning some religion. We have from all religious sects, we have poems in Hebrew from Israel, but everybody has only talked about, fellow human beings, the human qualities, humanity. So this is what has been the thinking and feeling of the poets. So this is how my poetic journey has been, where it is not about me at all. It has been about us as poets. Because I personally am not such a great poet that I can, say I am such a big person now, I don't need people around me. I can stay in my cocoon and I can produce, create and, promote poetry. For me, poetry is all of us here. Everybody here. And therefore, I created the poetic prism concept. And now I think we are all doing very well with that. Would you all like to hear some of my poetry? Which is not much anyway, but something I can just read out. I have this book which has been divided into 6 parts. First part is humor and satire, which is my speciality. Then there is a tributes page. Then there is a page for, I did something very unusual called writing film reviews in poetry form. This has not been tried anywhere in the world and has been treated as a record by the India Book of Records and the Wonder Book of Records. This book has gone into that. Likewise, I have written on management topics, That has also been, because nobody has ever attempted management topics like Ed Bono's 6 thinking hats or Peter Principle or some such thing. That has also gone into the record. And there is something called pen chants, which is a combination of poetry there. So I'll try to, short poems, I read from each of the section and I hope you like it. From the humor section, this is the preface I wrote, which is like a ratham. I created a ratham and then the artist created a chariot around it. I thought, everybody is writing text in a preface. I wrote a poem in the preface itself, which says, I owe my life to poetry. Words stumble in asymmetry from my imagination, but arrange themselves in harmony and symmetry. The chariot of my daily poems rides along as my creativity roams. So on one side I wrote words, ideas. So words emote, guide, gloat and abide. Ideas float, glide, bloat and stride. In simple poems that appear majestic, maybe at times they seem quite rustic, but they sure are never ever synthetic, and they do seem to be quite aesthetic. So this is what I tried to create in my preface. Coming to humor, English is a language that is spoken in different ways, and so on English I wrote a parody called English Winglish. That's the first poem in my humor. It's a short poem, I'll read it out to you. Even as he spoke some gibberish, he thought he spoke very good English. This often had people in splits and sometimes in laughter fits as he spoke only as per his wish. Always caring for his family, he told his friends seriously, I'll marry my sister first and it'll be my turn next when my mother will marry me. Many times they talk like that, thinking that I will marry my sister off. They forget the off and they say, I'll marry my sister. My mother will marry me off. They don't forget the off and they say, my mother will marry me. So this is how this poem was born. There is a poem called The Cat on the Wall. It is a satire on politics, but I have tried to. A cat perched on a high wall, deeply contemplating nature's call. She sat wondering, is still considering the side she should let it all fall. This is how our politicians also have cat on the wall policy. They don't know which side to jump. So this was on that, a short poem. Now coming to office nap, we all like a nap once in a while. A short nap during office time is certainly not a great crime. As long as the work doesn't suffer and the boss doesn't get tougher, a post-lunch nap can be sublime. Now, coming to tributes, I paid tributes to a lot of musical personalities who were my favorites. But I am not going to take all of the ones. Pandit Ravi Shankar was one of my favorites. So, for me, Pandit Ravi Shankar's sitar and music has created a lasting spell and magic. For him, boundaries mattered the least. His music merged the west and the east. As his fingers danced on the sitar strings, one felt drenched with several springs. Don't miss the Rag Pillu duet on sitar violin by Pandit Ravi Shankar and Yehudi Menuhin to experience a real life euphoria created by their musical ambrosia. Oh, this is just one of his several creations that set high standards of musical rendition. Yehudi Menuhin and George Harrison, they all had the say to say in unison. Ravi Shankar made Indian music universal. His creativity and genius had no parallel. Grammy's posthumous Lifetime Achievement Award would certainly not be the last for this musical bard. His music lives on in many a heart, of which he shall always be a part. Pandit Ravi Shankar, rest in peace amid sitar notes that never cease. Now, what does music mean for me? I wrote a small one. Again, a tribute to music. But I think you all like cricket, I suppose. Huh? So, I'll read a tribute to Sachin Tendulkar. Or would you like to hear Gurudev Ravindranath Tagore? Or Invincible Wall Rahul Dravid? Let me... Yeah. This is a tribute to two great April Indians. One was Sachin Tendulkar and another was Ramanujam, Srinivasa Ramanujan. About Sachin Tendulkar, what a man, what a plan, what a 100th century. Sachin's created history with such grace and elan. I absolutely fawn over this April born for his humility and dedication and the way he handles adulation. I salute Tendulkar, the sport icon. Now, Sachin Tendulkar was born on 24th April 1973. Srinivasa Ramanujan died on 26th April 1920. Ramanujan, the influential mathematician of the 20th century, his conjectures, that was his theory, conjectures theory. His conjectures contributed hugely to the numbers theory of mathematics. The mathematical legacy he left behind is the genius of his brilliant mind, his place very special in maths history. Incidentally, between 24th and 26th April, I was born on 25th April. So this was a small tailpiece from me, and it gives me some thrill that I was born on 25th April between the birth and death dates of these two April greats, though their shoes I can never fill. And again on Sachin Tendulkar, in his 200th test match, his very last, Sachin as usual went on a great blast when he scored a majestic 74 that left his fans asking as usual for more. His records seem in permanent molds cast. This man proved once again that he is no duck. It was his talent, dedication, and not merely luck that scripted the 74 of his swan song that will remain etched in public memory for long. Oh Sachin, my farewell tears for you run amok. Now coming to another section of the same book called Some Stories. I will not read any stories because you may find it boring because they are long ones. So I will not trouble you with the stories because they are 2-3 pages. But I'll just read a small one called Mobile Beauty. This is a story rewritten in a way that the same story is presented in different ways. This cute beauty in cotton dress well starched looked at him with moving lips and head arched. Thinking she desired with him a serious tete-a-tete, he walked towards this lady he had never before met. When speaking on a cell phone, off she marched. Now, this mobile beauty, I gave it another perspective, rewritten. This cute beauty in a cotton dress well starched looked at him with moving lips and head arched. It was obvious she desired a serious tete a tete. His heart too seemed to be on her, all quite set. Next, towards sunset, together they marched. Now, there was a sequel to this mobile beauty rewritten. With their heads on each other's arch, they spoke till their mouth was parched. Their tete seemed to all night last, as they went on till their match was cast. Towards sunrise, together they marched. In between, to quite a few calls they attended to get their work schedule suitably amended to enjoy their unusual love newfound, that with possibilities seemed to abound, though initially it had their bosses offended. But then the whole world loves the lovers. These two, no exception, got flexible hours to work at timings of their choice that gave them reasons to rejoice and bask under many such bounty showers. Very soon they took their wedding vows. Dressed in white, she invited many vows. He too, for the occasion, was suitably attired and looked like a man every woman desired. This couple, in many hearts, did envy arouse. This ever-loving man and wife, till the very end of their life, remained doting and always together, facing some balmy, some bad weather that brought equal joy and strife. Just imagine the fate of this lore if they had simply chosen to ignore her moving lips and arched head, for one using a cell phone instead, and hadn't noticed what she wore. Now, the last one is a very small one and a very special one for me. I have tried something in 3 lines, but it is not haiku or senryu or anything. It's just those 3 lines. It's called a hyperlink. You know, we use hyperlink in our this thing. Tranquility reached when I got hyperlinked to the Supreme One. And one last wish that I have in my life is, I do not know my worth as a human on this earth, but it is my burning desire, before I am consigned to fire, that my organs help those in death. So this is my small presentation to you all in the time given to me, and I hope I was able to communicate something and something of value and worth to you all. Thank you very much for this opportunity. It's been a pleasure interacting with you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, madam. All about your journey and your poetry, particularly the hilarious poetry you wrote and serious film reviews writing in poetry is something different. And management issues in poetry is also unique. And you concluded with haiku with your last wish, which is of a very organ donation, very socialistic concept. We congratulate you and we expect more publications from you in future.